Defleshed Exhumation is the third full-length album from Romanian death metal trio Necrotum. And this is a band where I would say at one point I would describe them as just a pure old school death metal band with pretty basic influences. You had heard some Cannibal Corpse and some Grave and really simple riff progressions, pretty terrible production values on their first record. They put out a ton of demos and singles over the first couple of years. They've only been around for since 2019, and they've been productive. Now, the real hallmark in their discography so far has been their first full length, and I think that, their second full length, Undead Symbiosis, gave us the peak of that original intent. It gave us the Grave and the Cannibal Corpse and the brutality of it and a clean production value. Um, Now they've pivoted in a sense after that because they've incorporated different members into the band. They're leaning into more brutal death metal influences, and we've got improving uh, production values. So what we're approaching here with this record is something that is will eventually be their own. You know, they're getting there, and you can tell. But let's cut into a song, and then I'll kind of break down the way that I received this record. So there's the sense that random notes are chosen in a lot of Necrotum's guitar work, and that they're chosen in a pattern that makes sense with the rhythms presented, and sometimes no real phrase is performed, and a lot of Finnish death metal does this too. It's more about the atmosphere of the notes as they hit the air and the guitar sound that touches them. There isn't a lot of evil sounds here. There's a lot of disarray, disorganized thoughts, and for me, that reminded me a little bit of the cacophony of Desecracy, because a lot of this is a mid-paced death metal record, but also Golgotha, who were more of a discordant and again, the random choice of notes with technique put behind them. And this is juxtaposed with very simple, hardcore-ish riff progressions and grooves, which are married to brutal death metal rhythms. On the drums especially, the drummer is a little bit better now, and Necrotum sound kind of revolves between those. Like, it's primitive death metal, it's brutal death metal, but it's also got this kind of skronking, strange feature to it that feels like they either don't know what they're doing or they're intentionally kind of creating disarray with their guitar lines. So it's a pretty interesting thing to follow, because it's tedious, it's hard to follow, it's convoluted, but it doesn't necessarily have a purpose in getting to where it goes. So I found that was surreal. It was not performative. It was really needled at, almost like a technical, brutal death metal record in a sense, but it performed slowly and in simple grooves. So there's a lot of moving parts that are just sort of sporagmos to tear the listener apart while they listen to it. And I can't really tell if they intended that or not, especially because we arrive upon this pretty solid demigod cover to close out the album. So yeah, it feels like an admixture at every point, and I found it was pretty compelling. As a death metal record, it doesn't read clean. You know, it's not a normal death metal record, but it's also pretty basic in a lot of its rhythmic expressions, and a lot of it it feels tone deaf. It feels strange in the way that a lot of avant-garde death metal records did in kind of the mid 90s. So I appreciated that about it. I don't know if that's their intent though, and I kind of like that. It's interesting because it just doesn't remind me of anything else at the moment. And I've always appreciated guitarists like Greg Ginn, who do have like kind of a jazz method behind the strange things that they do. So that's what that felt like to me in some sense. This still gets a high recommendation for me, even though I'm not sure if it's right for everyone. I just think they got the album art right. I think that this is will be interesting for multiple listens. I think it was for me. I think a lot of people will like to dig into a record like this and sort of feel out the intent and the patternation of it and see what you get out of it over time. Also, it's just kind of a classic old school death metal influenced feeling and style. So there's that too. go ahead and check that out for yourself. It comes out on January 22nd. And you can listen to a couple of songs as well as read my review on the website.